Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a totally unspoken reality of family dynamics. It's something almost every parent experiences on a daily basis, but honestly, it rarely gets talked about out loud. We are talking about the hidden architecture of childcare, authority, and influence that is operating right inside your home. So, who is actually in charge of your child? It's a provocative question to start with, isn't it? You probably think, well, I'm the parent, so I hold 100% of the executive power. But the reality on the ground? You might be surprised to learn you're probably wrong. Because lurking right behind the scenes in most families is this silent second system of power operating right under your nose. Yep, we're talking about the grandparents. They're an incredible resource, obviously, but they often act as a secondary governing body within the household. It's this dynamic that most people never formally agreed to. It just sort of organically happens as families grow. Part 1. The silent second system, or the unspoken architecture of family influence. Look, we all want to think our modern pediatricians are main advisors when it comes to raising kids, but there is a massive gap between our official advisors and our real day-to-day influence. You get a pamphlet from the doctor at an annual checkup, sure, but back home in the living room, it's the grandparents deciding if a slight cough means a trip to the ER or just a spoonful of honey. They're actively deciding what your kid eats for a snack, how they should be dressed for the weather, and what love practically looks like every single day. Moving on to Section 2, the parallel parenting trap. This is when help becomes shadow governance. See, grandparents aren't just babysitters dropping by for a few hours. They actually become a parallel parenting system. Sometimes, yes, they follow your rules to the letter, but very often, they quietly replace your rules with their own. It becomes this reality that no one explicitly signed up for, yet it just seamlessly hums along in the background. Picture this scenario. You, the parent, enforce a firm boundary. Absolutely no sweets. Meanwhile, that parallel system, the grandparent, overrides it, totally out of affection. Oh, just one more cookie, it's love. When this happens all the time, your child gets a literal masterclass in family politics. They learn really fast that different adults mean completely different rules. Which brings us to Section 3. Kids are strategic, not confused. Here's how the rational child exploits the system. We tend to think children just get overwhelmed by mixed messages, but in reality, they are like little Machiavellian politicians. I'm serious. They build a mental checklist, figuring out exactly what they can get away with asking grandma, what is strictly off limits with mom and dad, and most importantly, who is going to say yes when everyone else says no. They map out the household power dynamics with incredible precision. So the huge takeaway here is that children are absolutely not confused by these mixed messages. They adapt. They don't get confused. They get strategic. They figure out exactly how to work this fractured system of authority to get the outcomes they want. Section 4, Tradition versus Modern Medicine. Let's look at the root cause of this power struggle. Now, the real problem here isn't some sort of intentional grandparent coup. It's actually a power vacuum. Parents are exhausted from intense work obligations, sky-high stress levels, maybe a new baby, and just massive daily fatigue. You literally can't micromanage every second, so grandparents naturally and willingly step in to fill that void and take over daily decisions. And, well, this inevitably leads to a blow-up. A parent finally tries to reclaim their authority, throwing out something like, "You're raising the child wrong." And the grandparent, who genuinely acted out of pure necessity and love, is shocked, thinking, wait, we were just helping. It's a clash where both sides feel 100% justified. To really get where the grandparents are coming from, we have to understand their emotional loop. First, they feel experienced, right? They've done this before. Second, they genuinely want to help out. But third, that desire to help kind of morphs into wanting control over the situation. And fourth, and this is super important, they desperately want to feel needed. They are terrified of being replaced if they aren't heavily involved. Because of all that past experience, we get a constant collision on the ground. Grandparents naturally lean on traditional remedies, while parents are trying to stick to modern, evidence-based medicine. You've got old feeding rules colliding directly with modern nutrition science. This whole, well, we did it like this before philosophy constantly bumps up against current pediatric knowledge. It is a daily clash of eras. But here is the absolute honest truth about this clash. Children are going to survive both systems. Survival isn't the problem. The true danger of parallel parenting is the complete and utter lack of consistency.
When the rules completely flip depending on which adult walks into the room, a child's entire environment becomes totally unpredictable. Finally, Section 5, the new family framework, how to reboot the system for balance. So how do we fix this? It requires setting up a really clear, healthy framework. Rule number 1, parents decide. They hold the executive authority, period. Number 2, grandparents support. Their role is strictly to reinforce, not replace. And number 3, clarity protects the child. This framework ensures your kid isn't burdened with navigating family politics just to get a snack. For this to actually work, grandparents have to proactively ask questions. What should I feed them today? What clothes should they wear? What are the specific rules right now? They need to ask these things not because they don't know how to parent, but because this absolute clarity protects the child from playing the adults against each other. It unifies the front. As we wrap up this explainer, we absolutely have to acknowledge that grandparents are one of the greatest resources a child could ever have. But here's the ultimate truth. Love without structure just creates chaos. On the flip side, structure without love, that creates distance. A kid desperately needs both. We have to perfectly balance that boundless grandparent love with a unified parent-led structure. I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative question. How will you align the adults in your life so your child gets both unconditional love and a single, consistent structure? Take a beat to really examine the invisible architecture operating in your own family. Have those hard conversations about modern medicine versus traditional methods. Because when you finally get this balance right, and the adults act as one unified team, everyone wins.